Nepal is an adventurous dream. Vast territories that are yet to be explored are waiting, but they will never be conquered by humankind, as they belong only to the nature. Prayers that are whispered by monks into the icy wind of the highest mountains on earth are the ones that will lead your way to reach the nearest pass.
You will hear roaring of big cities that alternates with almost silent places where time doesn't exist. Places where you slow down and feel the present moment. You can feel the Buddhist spirit that peacefully persists next to the Hindu traditions. The smell of incense and touch of the spirituality is everywhere as you wake up in the morning and observe life. By giving and sharing, you realize that what really matters is the present moment. And despite all the troubles that Nepal encountered this year, you will feel hope within all the people. Hope that everybody will be standing on their feet again, more resilient, stronger, and light-hearted. The year 2015 will be long remembered in Nepal. 2 earthquakes of magnitude 7.8 and 7.3 struck just before monsoon season. More than 9,000 people died and more than 25,000 were injured. After the first earthquake, people were hoping that it will not come again, but shortly after, their hopes proved wrong. The second earthquake struck with a massive magnitude and was followed by many strong aftershocks that were coming until 2nd July. These villages, far from supplies, were like besieged by invisible and cruel enemy that strikes on a random scale with no reason. I didn't know what was going on. I felt this is the end of the universe. After so many aftershocks, I completely lost my mind.
The house was shaking and it was moving like a tree in a wind in all directions. I was very dizzy and I also lost my mind during that never-ending shaking.
We are now Barpak, which is we are exactly Monidara. Monidara is earthquake epicenter. And all the house was destroyed, now slowly recovering.
International humanitarian effort has made a huge progress in the relief process. Yet, half a year after earthquake, people in some places still struggle and are left behind. Vast majority of those that received help are now living under a tent or another temporary shelter. Almost 500,000 people became homeless as their houses collapsed or were heavily damaged. In these houses, people are afraid to sleep due to cracks and the fear that another aftershock might mean an end to their lives. Surya Gale is now living in a temporary house that was built by Indian Army, and she was donated food, medicine and other things to survive.
I feel very thankful for all the foreign people that came here to help, but also feel sadness deep in my heart that all my village is in ruins now. When I was living under a tent, I was quite sick and had diarrhea, so I'm very happy about this temporary house.
Git and Bina Gurung are now living under a tent. They eat a little rice and cook for themselves.
We were running from our collapsed house here in Barpak to our brother's house, but it was already destroyed too, and our brother was dead. We had no other option than to come back here and try to survive. Nowadays, we work as firewood porters. We still live under tarpaulins.
It is obvious that life in these metal boxes in the mountainous regions might be quite challenging.
Winter season is very bad. I think this is not good. This area is snowfall. Winter season. This house is not good, I think.
What can we do? The whole family now lives in a small temporary shelter. Unfortunately, all the grain and livestock died in our collapsed house. We try to manage and forget about the past.
Further north from Barpak, behind the massive mountains, lie ancient villages that were built in remote areas. Apart from Barpak, only caravans of mules could venture here on foot. It takes more than 6 days to get to the nearest motor road. Some people we interviewed live still under a tent.
Because of the aftershocks, I was not able to repair my house. Now I can do that and will be moving soon.
These ladies are running a restaurant from their tent. After they lost their own building, they moved in this area. They both wish one day to build a house, and they want to earn money for that by making momos and other dishes for the villagers. Some villagers already managed to borrow money from their families, and they were able to rebuild their houses.
Right after the earthquake, we received tarpaulins, food, and a small amount of money to buy some nails. I have also borrowed money from all around to build my new house. Without foreign support, it would be difficult to start again.
This school in Prožil was completely pillaged by the April earthquake, and since then it's been repaired. Until everything is finished, classes must be taught in tents.
They lost the whole building, which was the main school for 3 or 4 villages. And now they have tents, big A-frame tents, and I think they have about 10 of them. And the whole school is now being on a temporary basis until they get something else. And so the next step would be either the temporary learning space or like they call temporary learning center.
But there are still some places that will not recover quickly, as there is lack of opportunities, especially at the times when there are no tourists coming. They used to flourish in past years and bring essential income into these areas. Nubrivoli and Menaslu Conservation Area has been always a place of interest by many hikers and climbers.
When we talk about livelihood or how to survive after the earthquake in this area, that's a tough question because traditionally the main source for income has been, of course, the farming, which is very limited. Then you can have the tourism. You can start your own trekking company or be a tour guide or some sort of you can have a small guest house. or then you give some other services for those tourists, such as restaurant or cafe, and that's about it that people have had here in these areas. The only addition to this would be serving the government, police force, armed police force, army, or the health post or government other agencies. And that is very limited, and most of those positions go to the people coming from the lower areas, from the valleys. So for the local people living here traditionally, that's about the package that they've had in their visibility at the moment.
One gate here. So this is the way out to the...
Lakpa is now building a cultural museum and new buildings that might suit well as accommodation for tourists in years to come. He is giving people in community hope that this village named Namrung will arise again.
Gun shooting place. This is, you can see the hole here. The hole is small. The inside is big. Here is smaller. This is every house they have this window to shoot the gun, you know. And after the earthquake, what I feel like really have something happening here. So what should I do? And I thinking myself is like everybody is drinking and drinking, and the mind is kind of using. So what I'm thinking is I can do like this, and I have to change my mind. If we can give more technology or more teaching to them, is do something new. Like here, like we grow the apple, we can grow the many things we can grow here, but they have no idea to do something. This is also need to teach, and every people are very happy, because now as many people they want to do, but they don't know how to do something and how to make money or how to live a life here.
Organizations in these mountainous regions need to deliver humanitarian aid by helicopters.
What we would distribute are extra tarpaulins, blankets, clothes, sleeping bags, woolen shawls, and if need be for extremely vulnerable groups like pregnant women, lactating mothers, children under 5 years of age, elderly people, disabled people. We also give out woolen hats, caps, and socks. So we want to make sure that people who have lost their clothes, who have lost their houses, are equipped enough to stay warm during the winter.
For understanding bigger picture, we moved to Sindupalchowk district, which is eastern from Kathmandu and was heavily hit by the second earthquake of 7.2 magnitude. The district is mostly hilly, remote, and after landslides, it's really difficult to access. According to UN report, 92% of the households in Sindupalchowk lived in houses made of bricks and stone with a mud plaster. Observations in villages reveal that almost all of these houses were completely destroyed. Shanti Temang is now desperate, as she has to pay back a loan for a house that doesn't exist anymore.
I was really scared because at the time of the earthquake, I was working on a farm and one of my kids was left at home. Our house was completely destroyed, and unfortunately it is still on a loan that I have to pay back. My husband works in Malaysia, so I'm relying on the money he sends back. I have 3 kids and it is difficult to manage everything. Luckily, nobody from our family died, and I feel very happy about it. But now I'm worried how we will survive the coming winter without blankets and warm clothes. I'm worried because I don't even have spare clothes. We don't have enough food and we are not ready for the coming winter. Because of landslides and heavy monsoon season, we were not able to plant the crops and we had no other option than to rely on the humanitarian aid.
Because of a landslide, my property is now in mud, so I couldn't plant any crops, which used to be my source of income. Now I have no idea what to do during winter, what clothes I should wear, and I'm quite confused about what to do.
People have been like that for quite a while. They're too poor, to even afford a single pair of shoes. We feel so cold. We are wearing 2 or 3 jackets at a time, but they're still wearing a single piece of cloth and not even a pair of shoes in their feet. So they're ignorant, they're poor, they're helpless. We want them to start their agricultural stories again. But the main problem is we still are working on data. We don't have proper data regarding how many were affected. We don't have proper data set. So right now I'm just looking for right information so that I can provide them right support. So the main problem would be logistics, bringing in things. In my perspective, in my point of view, I see the biggest problem is that the government does not have proper, plans and policies. If only good government come up with, very fine, plans and policies and have a good coordination program with the INGOs, NGOs, or any acting agencies or any acting heroes, then I guess this relief work would be much better.
Organizations working in this area are trying to give advice to the villagers how to build earthquake-resilient houses.
There is already a lot of information and knowledge in Building Code of Nepal. Look into this building behind us and look at the roof. The roof now is standing on the wall. Even if you have few stones dropping off, the wall will fall off with it. So this is not connected to any vertical structure. Then come to this new proposed design with vertical reinforcement. The roof will now be fixed to the wooden structure. Even if the stones and walls would fall off, the vertical structure would still remain intact. So what that does is, if you have to reconstruct your house, if you have to rehabilitate it after an earthquake, if there are minor cracks and damage, you can do it with a very less effort. You do not have to take down the whole reinforcement, you just back your stones and build it back again. But then come back to this building. If you have to rehabilitate this, you'll have to demolish this one first, because there is no way you can keep that roof intact. You see these horizontal binding bars? This provide the horizontal reinforcement. So what this does is this makes this whole house as one entity. This gives the structural strength that's required to be flexible during the earthquake. Now combine these corner stones or tie stones with the vertical reinforcement and the horizontal support, which comes together. Then you already have a sound building, even with just stones and wood. This house has a foundation which goes 5 feet down, and the wooden bar, they go 3 feet down. So these are vertically inserted downwards and provides the strength that is required. The houses you see up north are beautiful houses. These are a work of love and art. So we should make sure that when we build efficient, permanent and earthquake resilient houses, they adapt to the local culture and tradition.
One of the problem that happened during the last earthquake, what we learned is that the stone walls, dry stone walls, are falling apart in a very different way. Because one of the reasons is they are not monolithic. The whole building is not acting as a monolithic, one single unit. So one like really very simple intervention is that you are trying to put this band, what do you call this band, which you can make from the wood, which you can also have from the cement concrete, or also from the gabion wall. Actually, you can also find in some of the heritage building, like some in monasteries, some in gateway, stupas. Actually, if you look very carefully, you can find this element. The whole wall have collapsed, then it fell down like this, slipped down. And then, so you have this huge load on top of it, but then they have a good support by the pillar in the center. There is a central pillar coming all the way from the ground, supported. Then, which is on top of that is supported by huge beams. So, but then what happened in the earthquake in some part of the not maintained, poorly maintained building is that because poor rafters, purlins could not support, so it fell down inside, and then you have there is a attic level. So some parts the attic has supported these fallen stones. In some buildings not. So it really depends from one house to another.
Even these organizations are working hard to get this message across. You will not find so many repaired houses that are using some new techniques. In most cases, you will see stone and mud.
There's no other option than to build from what we have here. So we made a special technique to assure that in case of another earthquake, roofs will not fall down on our heads. We're using wooden pillars, tin roof instead of the one made of stones. We're building a low profile in small buildings that might be less prone to shaking and kill people inside.
So people they have to survive, and that's why they're making their houses with the stone or steel, because there is no way to make with the other materials because they don't have the money.
In Samdo, nearby Tibetan borders, people are aware of strong winds and are afraid that tint roof would not be enough. This man is repairing his roof with no equipment, just bare hands. But people have been fighting another crisis that has nothing to do with earthquake, but still is hitting Nepal at times when it needs to recover from the massive damage. Its name is fuel crisis, which started just after adoption of long-awaited Nepali constitution on 20th September 2015 as a result of a large-scale blockade on Nepali-Indian borders. This fuel crisis has been treated as even more dangerous for Nepal than recent earthquakes. Nepal imports about 60% of its medicine from India. The remaining locally made drugs also get most of the raw material and packaging from India. Most of the fuel comes from India, and the restriction has led to severe shortages in Nepal. Fuel rationing has led to buses and trucks cutting down services. People travel on rooftops and taxis charge 4 times the normal rate. Country is struggling to run with minimal petrol and gas, resulting in closures of many businesses, reducing the transportation capacities. These days you will see hundreds of cars waiting in kilometers-long queues for just a bit of petrol. Taxi drivers wait more than 3 days for 10 liters of petrol. In Nepal, people are desperate, but they are not sure what they can do about it. Relief organizations are also struggling to get to the affected areas because of fuel shortages. People in Nepal are extremely worried about the coming months as the situation worsens. Most have lost their hope in the government and are looking to the international community for help. Not necessarily for aid, but for pressure to be put on both India and Nepal in order for the border dispute to be resolved. They need the world to raise awareness of the situation. One can learn a lot from people that are bravely fighting with these struggles. You will still find a resilience and optimism amongst people even during the hard times. Thankfulness that they survived earthquake and living the present moment is not rare. In Nepal, you will see the unique smiles of people that will impress on your mind. Let's hope that everything will be alright again, but only hoping will never be enough.